Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me here on my fairly new channel. I am really inspired to put more information out, specifically as a naturopathic doctor with close to 20 years of experience and a Chinese medicine practitioner and acupuncturist. I have been really involved in the holistic approach to health and healing and the whole wellness industry, and have had, a lot of opportunities to learn and teach and travel with this medicine. And I am continually inspired by it. And I hope to provide some information over time that will help us myth bust. We are inundated with information. We are also inundated with misinformation, conflicting ideas, and also still underneath a paradigm in medicine that is heavily focused on fear and labels and diagnostics, but not always coming to a place of good health, empowerment, better understanding of our own bodies and how they work, and solutions. So as we move forward with time, I like to say, rather than just thinking about all the negative things associated with aging, as we move forward in time in our lives, we are constantly challenged to pivot and adapt. And if we want to live our best lives and feel healthy and radiant, another thing we are needing to do is to be challenged to take on new things. And so today I want to share one of the new things I embraced in my life. It's fairly new. I've actually been at it for a while, but that is surfing. I grew up as an ocean person, always thought that surfing was so cool, and never really had the opportunity to do it until I was in my early 30s, once on a vacation, and then really started to learn in my mid 30s. Now, most of the people that you see that are so good and fearless and athletic and graceful, they learn as kids, which is such a gift, and they're very good at it. And so learning when you're in your mid 30s comes with a few bumps, a few bruises, definitely a few ego checks, and can be intimidating and all kinds of things, sometimes embarrassing and vulnerable. But the main thing for me was that it was a type of exercise, yes. I mean, it's not just exercise, it is more of a passion, but an exercise where I just wanted to keep showing up no matter what. And so the persistence and the patience with that really began to pay. And I started to experience something that changed how I think about aging and health pretty profoundly. Because as a clinician, there's always times when a handful of folks will come into my office, or, more importantly than that, there are times when I will just be out in the world where I will be inundated with people complaining about age. Just wait. It doesn't feel good, and it's because I'm 55, or it's because I'm 65, or it's because I'm 75. I just didn't want to feel like that. And I don't think that you need to feel that way either, because truthfully, there are some simple things that we can do as we sort of shift our perspective and our mindset that can help us age feeling more graceful, more resilient, spiritually even more grounded, and certainly stronger. And so that is my goal today, is just to share with you some reasons why I'm inspired to educate on this topic, and to invite you into a perspective shift that for me is inspired by the ocean. It's inspired by surfing. Interestingly, one of the things we face the most in this medical paradigm that we're under, as I mentioned, is fear. Fear about the label, fear about the symptom, fear about any kind of diagnosis, and fear about what is going to happen as I get older. Interestingly, in Chinese medicine, fear is the emotion that's associated with the water. So water does have us a lot to teach us about fear specifically, because when we are in a more harmonious state and we're thinking about the power of the ocean, we could see that as awe and humility in front of that which is more powerful than us. When that is out of balance, we start to get into a place of fear, panic, and even paranoia. So thinking about that difference between a tidal wave coming toward us or just smaller, surfable, rideable, gentle waves, and how do we apply that principle to our own lives. So, very specifically, one of the most important things I learned early on with surfing is you cannot argue with the changing tide. You can try, it will not work. So as the tide starts to change from coming in to going out, or the wind shifts and things start to get a little hairier, a little more intimidating, or it just feels too tough to do, the question that nature is asking us is, can you adapt? Can you pivot? Can you go with the flow? And I do believe that our bodies actually work in the same way. Nature doesn't ask us, what we think about the conditions. It just gives us the conditions on any given day. It's going to give us nice, clean, smooth waves, or there's not going to be any waves at all, or it might bring us a larger storm. And so, trying to fight and trying to struggle against change and giving more resistance and tension usually ends up prolonging the very symptoms that we are trying to overcome. So, tip number one is, instead of arguing and resisting and tensing against the changing tide, what if we learn to embrace and hit the reset button and go with what the conditions are giving us, and try to come first from a place of acceptance and then set the stage and the tone for where we want to go next. The other most important thing I've picked up with surfing is that when you panic underwater, it actually makes it a lot more difficult. So sometimes you're going to get held under for, that 1 to 2 to 5 seconds that feels a little uncomfortable. And, just like in other practices like yoga, for example, where you may be doing a stretch and you just do that one more deep breath, in surfing, it would be the opposite, where you're having to hold your breath, but stay comfortable, stay calm when you're getting thrashed around a little bit, right? So when the bigger challenges in life come, the more we relax, the more we surrender and let go into the moment without giving in to the panic and the fear that is associated with whatever stress, whatever thing we're faced with in that moment, actually the faster the wave will pass, the faster the challenge and the difficulty will pass. So it's a totally counterintuitive thing. In the beginning, when you get tossed under and you feel uncomfortable, especially if you're not such a strong swimmer, you may feel really challenged by that, but unbelievably over time, you learn to just kind of stay calm and the water carries you up. So that is the second thing. Now, the third thing I wanted to share is something that happened fairly recently. I want to give a shout out specifically to the lineup in Chiba, Japan. I was able to go surfing in Japan, which for me was such a just lifelong dream and so incredible and fun and wonderful. And a few things happened there that I just wanted to share because it really touched me as a human being and touched me in life, as someone that has worked a lot in mental health and working with emotional support with people, and just how the world is today. Things can feel a little too tense and overwhelming, and people can feel agitated, and there's not always the easiest conditions, as I mentioned, right? So when I went out surfing in Japan, the conditions were a little tough and a little rough. It was stormy, the water was warm, but it was raining really hard, and the waves were a little big. And someone paddled up to me. It was quite crowded, but a person paddled up to me and said, hey, do you speak English? And I said, yes. And he said, we can paddle together for safety. And I was like, wow, just for someone to come up and approach you in that way, in a foreign place, in, not your local surf break, was pretty impressive and really kind. And then later on, probably 2 or 3 days later, when I was back out there again, I just kept going, back at it. He said, if you see a wave that you can go for, don't worry about us, just go. And anybody in the audience who happens to catch this video and is a surfer would know how remarkable that is, because there was not a competitive vibe. There was not a locals only vibe. It was about humility, respect, kindness, since they knew that I was a foreign person coming in, and as I kind of left on my last day and paddled out and walked away as I was about to leave that area and go travel elsewhere in Japan, I just, felt this sense of overwhelming and deep gratitude for the people there, and made me think about, how much we have to learn and think about a culture that is built around humility and respect. And that is one of the most important things that the ocean teaches us, is this notion of humility and respect for that which is more powerful than us. And that just kindness and open communication kind of really took so much of my nerves and my fear about surfing in that place, in that time, in that moment away. And so there's a number of things that I have picked up, patience, persistence, and taking on new challenges. And that's really the most important piece about what I think really applies to health and medicine, is that if we would like to age with greater strength, better relationship to stress, more resilience, and even feeling spiritually a little bit more grounded, or that our relationships are, feeling better and better with time, that one of the most important pieces is that we continue to accept new things, we learn new things, we take on new adventures, and we find the joy. We find the joy even in the challenge. We attempt to let go a little bit more of the struggle. And I feel that this is actually really the secret sauce when it comes to aging. It's not about necessarily chasing youth. It is certainly not about fighting the tide or fighting time. It's about saying, hey, what is my new next adventure? And putting a little challenge into it is very good, because that is what shifts the pathways, our neuronal pathways in our brain, creates neuroplasticity, which is now being studied, as far as how we reduce anxiety and repetitive patterns. It's all about learning something new. So I hope that my story about surfing will inspire you to go paddle out if you're a surfer, and to go paddle out in life, take on some kind of a new challenge, and think about how these things that we put on hold because it's not the right time, or we have to do something else first, carving out the time to go after that next adventure is actually what makes us stronger and more radiant, more adaptable and resilient with aging. And this is really one of the core things that my Aging into Vitality program is all about. It's, yes, there are all kinds of health and wellness tips that are in there, but it is also about helping to empower you to find more joy and to chase your next adventure. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you for joining me.